Welcome to the Creative Condition podcast, an ongoing series of conversations and considerations to help people understand and embrace their own unique creativity for fulfilling lives and brilliant careers. My name is Ben Talon. I'm an illustrator and author, and I bring 16 years of creative industry experience working with the New York Times, The Guardian, the Premier League, and more. And I invite designers, artists, psychologists, scientists, coaches, athletes, sensitivity experts, and all kinds of thought leaders to help us broaden our knowledge of creativity. Creativity is a fundamental pillar of human happiness, a vital ingredient in the solutions to our problems, but so often misunderstood. The show is supported by founding sponsor and B Corp, Illustration X. Take a look at their stunning range of illustrators and animators at illustrationx.com. If you like the music for the show, it's by Dirty Freud, who you can listen to now on Spotify and all good music streaming services.
All of that stuff is kind of becoming one little mishmash of understanding humans and their stories, and understanding that we're all just these creatures that tell stories. And the more engaging we are in the way we tell the stories, the more people respond.
Today I'm joined by Natalia Talkowska. Natalia is the CEO and founder of Natalka Design, a fascinating, pioneering, neuroscience-led strategic storytelling agency. It was founded in 2012. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Natalia's winding road from Poland and a background where it wasn't culturally normal to promote work in the arts. We all know that one to a degree. We're going to talk about how she overcame that, the unlikely break into the visual communication industry, and why drawing is still not respected but can do so much for strategy, for complex business tasks, and just to make us feel good. This is the Creative Condition. Hello, how are you doing, guys? I hope you're well. My name is Ben Talon. This is the Creative Condition. Back with today's episode 247 of the show. I'm joined by Natalia Talkowska. As I mentioned there, CEO and founder of Natalka Design. She's a wonderful character. I'm excited to bring her to you today, but quickly, first, a sponsor shout out. Founding sponsor of the show, the wonderful Illustration X. Check out their global range of illustration and animation portfolios, along with their brilliant Trend X reporting frontline observations from their agents of the industry. illustrationx.com. Ukrainian Institute, I'm going to give them another shout out. The brilliant Now Is Better by Stefan Sagmeister came out in Ukraine last week, and I couldn't be happier because, well, it's absolutely amazing because they're going through horrific shit and still need to dream. As humans, we need more than just survival. It's tumultuous times out there on so many fronts. And to see such a positive book coming out there is just empowering and mind-blowing. And regular listeners of the show will remember the episode that I did with Olya Protasova, a graphic designer, illustrator and design activist from Ukraine, who talked to me frankly about creativity in times of war and Ukrainian history and why it's still important. Now, Olya played a link in that chain, in an important part in that journey of getting the book published out there by raising it to the local Ukrainian design community, and conversations got going. There's a real togetherness, and long story short, the book is out now. And I was delighted to learn that Olya heard about the book on this very podcast. What a lovely thing to have felt that you played a tiny part in such a thing, and it gives us hope in darker times. So I hope you enjoyed last week's show with Kyle Chaker, New Yorker, staff writer, author of Filter World, How Algorithms Flatten Culture. Had some great feedback on the show. We talk about the early internet, how it's degenerated somewhat into algorithmic recommendations since 2010, how that lovely curation and passion of the early internet has gone by the wayside to a degree, and how that's impacted creativity, and what do we do to get ourselves out of that sea of same. It follows the pattern of the show I did with Max Ottignon live at D&AD Festival earlier this year, and other conversations. Jump in, let us know your thoughts. Ben@bentalon.com on the email, or drop us a message on LinkedIn. They're the best ways to get hold of me. Anything else, I might be a little slow, so forgive me. I'm trying to just dial back from tech a little bit. If you're a regular listener to the show, you might also have noticed that I have stopped doing the highlights editions at the moment and the what we learned. And I feel a little bad about that because it was kind of a cool system, but I am just overloaded And what I've always had to do with this show is ebb and flow and work out how much can I do, because I make next to no money on this show. It's a part of a growing creative condition model I hope to monetize soon through my coaching. I did actually just take on my first long-term client, which I'm very excited about and delighted. But with that, with working as a full-time illustrator, doing this show, raising 2 kids, oh God, I've been going through something of a burnout this week. So I've had to just go, come on now, you produce this show yourself. Is it smart to be putting out highlights editions, recap episodes? It's people, I guess, are going to have to just, drink down the whole meaty episode or go to something snappier. And if I lose listeners, I do apologise, but it's there's only so much one man can do. So going back to one show a week, still keeping it weekly, but it's part of the reason to keep it weekly. Then I'm going to have to just cut back a little bit, because doing all these new highlights editions is just, the workload is getting ridiculous, and anybody with kids will know that if you want to do that properly, you can't be working every evening and on the weekends, which is something I don't do. So, there we have it. But that's it, all positive. It's all for the good of the show, so I hope you're cool with that. Still going to be available once a week, and today's episode with Natalia is cracking. So Natalia is brilliant. I'll read you a bio here, and this is the deal. So Natalka design is very, very interesting. So Natalia Talkowska is a Polish-born, award-winning CEO and founder of the pioneering neuroscience-led strategic storytelling agency Natalka Design. Founded in 2012, Natalia and her team redefine how businesses communicate using neuroscience-led visual storytelling for instant ideation and problem-solving to create strategic creative that really resonates with people. Working with renowned brands including Google, Disney, the British royal family, and leading agencies and consultancies including PwC, Ernst & Young, Omnicom, and Havas. Natalia is a 6-time TEDx speaker and regularly shares her knowledge on strategic storytelling, creativity, and thriving in an AI-driven world, emphasising the critical role of human creativity in an era of automation. She also founded Doodle-Do, a global movement that has revolutionised... that has revolutionised more inclusive team building and empowered people across 25 countries to believe that they can draw and connect through play. As an award-winning creative, visual innovator, UAL and Central St Martin's guest lecturer, and Imperial College expert in residence, Natalia has spent over a decade helping high-profile clients strategize and make an impact through captivating visual storytelling tools. Her team made history by being the first to summarise a tech conference using immersive VR, which was covered by Forbes. So there you have it. Very exciting stuff. This was a wonderful, deep conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it and get something out of it. If you want more of this creativity stuff, I have opened up my creative program. I'm working on the website right now. So you'll have to get in touch and say hello direct, but I will send you my PDF document, which details the one-to-one coaching session. It's called Pit Stop. It's a one-off intensive audit of your creativity. We go through everything together, and then I send you recommended notes. It will set you on a better path. I also offer it up as a workshop, and I do this for businesses and organisations. Done it for D&AD. I'm in talks with Young Urban Arts Foundation about potentially doing it for them. Many opportunities moving forward. Very excited about it. So come and say hello. I'm hoping the website will be launched by the end of the year. We'll have booking forms. We'll have all the good stuff, resources on there. You can also get the Creative Condition book and the Anatomy of Creativity map now at bentalentwriter.com/shop until the Creative Condition website is up. That's enough rambling from me. Enjoy this conversation with Natalia Talkowska.
I'm from Poland. I was born in communist Poland back in the 80s. Yes, I know I look like I'm from 90s, but it's from the 80s. And simple upbringing. You're looking at someone who's forever, I think, just been very creative and curious. And, you know, what I kind of learned about growing up back in the days, it was kind of just concrete and a lot of trees. So you kind of have to come up with your own ideas, creativity, play, and we all know kids like to play. So if you kind of don't have much to work with, paper and pen were literally my everything. I was drawing since I remember. It was my escapism. It was my safe place. It was a lot of the times a place where I could find a bit of a peace. I grew up in pretty chaotic household, and that was very much something that just, I think, balanced me a lot. So that's something that, you know, on the surface, I sometimes look at it and I'm like, yay, I was drawing a lot of Disney and manga and like, how lovely. And I always call it the longest internship in my life, because here we are definitely over 10,000 hours in the future. But also on the deeper side, it was a place for me to really switch off. I could spend hours and hours and hours drawing, sketching, painting, God knows what it was. But also, you're looking at a kid that's just running around. There's the old kiosk, and suddenly that becomes a castle, and skateboarding and cycling and whatever else we could think of. A lot of time outside, which I'm always so grateful for, that I had that time before all the tech kind of took over and the first phones came, and our lives have changed forever. So yeah, very much simple upbringing, studies in Poland. I'm coming from one of those places where art wasn't a thing to go and study, let's call it, wasn't a thing culturally to think, oh, this could be my job. This could, secure my future. This could be something I can explore, which is sad, because I always wanted to like go and work for Disney or something like that. There just wasn't any options for that. So I went in the languages kind of way, because it was always quite easy for me, I think, and natural to pick up languages. And I loved English. Thank God can speak to you now. Thank you for all the MTV days and Friends and all that, I guess, on Polish TV. But on a more serious note, I really loved English. I really connected with that language a lot. And it was something that my brain really enjoyed. And I felt like it's expanding. The more I know, the more it gets heavy in a good way. And yes, I went that way. I studied languages, teaching foreigners English, then went into translation, a bit of psychology as well behind it, how language works in the brain and all that. So that fascinated me, because part of me always wanted to work for NASA, or like, look at the stars, or be a scientist in the lab or something like that. So yeah, that's been kind of in a hopefully nutshell, a bit of Natalia, the young version before it kind of became what it is.
The language bit's really interesting. I talked to a person called Sarah Coggin, who is a language teacher and an illustrator, and she was very big on using emotive techniques in the way that she teaches language. So really tapping into a person's story and personality and their passions to kind of, because it's that classic thing that I think is often overlooked in education. When a person is motivated and energized and interested, then the learning just amplifies. What was, when the was, I don't know what my question is with it, but the way that you sort of were drawn to languages, did you feel creative in that sense? Did you find a form of creativity within that?
I think so. I just loved it. So it was like opening another door. It was like, whoa, like I'm communicating in different language. What is a different language anyways? It's kind of like you have to almost tell yourself that there's another world you can enter. And although it is, you can speak in a different way. I don't know how to say it, but I just love the kind of, I think, duality of that experience. And part of me, like, I'm always impressed with any kids born in like Switzerland or something, and they speak like 4 to 6 languages. It's nuts. So I'm still, I'm nowhere there, but I love that sort of experience of opening up almost like new doors. So the curiosity was fully there. I would say though, throughout that time of learning language since kindergarten, which I'm very grateful for, but I learned quickly how I like to learn, where I'm best at learning, in what sort of environment. Meaning, for example, one-to-one, I was skyrocketing with speed of learning versus group. Or let's say then when I went to study and do my BA studies, they were so intense. I'm so grateful for these studies in Poland, because they were on I think, highest level I've ever seen in terms of progressing with my language and my knowledge. To that extent, where I came to London 2008, I was doing all my like grammatical structures. I was like, but for the fact that, if it wasn't for the something, and people are like, Natalia, like no one speaks like that. Like, that's so cool. But, just use the simple, like, how are you? And, when you come from that sort of like almost book-esque preparation to language, you quickly learn your way through it, how people actually speak, which was an amazing new encounter for me. Oh, okay, this is where we are. We're sitting in this sort of space. Okay, we don't need to use that. Or, had I known something. So just not as much of that. So I was I think it was intellectually amazing for my brain, and new paths, I think, and pathways opened when you think about it. The listening, the learning the language, the drawing is happening, the translating, a bit of psychology. I was fascinated. So at some point, I think just a bit of a cocktail happened, and here I am.
Yeah, and you had something really interesting there, which is the kind of the difference between intellectual and intelligence, and you show great self-awareness in recognizing that you respond differently in different environments, and that you might need something different to engage with that learning. Because to this day, it's something that I see massively overlooked in the way that people are aware of their own creativity. You know, on any given day, you might need to change your scene a number of times to be optimally creative. You know, and I think that is sort of intelligence. Whereas, you know, you could really focus on the intellectual side of it, the reasons why you learn language in a certain way, or the structure, or the grammar, all that side of stuff. But actually, if you're not sympathetic to your own needs in that regard, then you're not going to maximize the intellectual stuff. You know.
Yeah, you kind of have to like join and kind of find yourself in the environment you're at, right? So there's the book side of things, and then there's actual doing the things. And I think that's with anything in life, right? Like the practical versus the what we know. How do you kind of marry the two? I think you kind of then quickly learn by doing. So the me coming to London was the doing, the active everyday asking a shopkeeper for help, or interacting with people. That was a different path. That was a new learning, right, of kind of the
Yeah.
intellectual side of things.
Yeah, that's something that Sarah also raised. She talked about how, you know, she would travel a lot, and it was her way of throwing herself, forcing herself to learn quicker by, because she wanted to go to parties in these new countries where she was at, and she wanted to know what people were talking about. So that was her kind of deep end way of almost leaning on the intelligence side of things to learn more and learn those kind of local colloquialisms, and and I just find that really interesting. And I think there's a lot to be learned there in terms of artistic practice, and and tuning into creativity and recognizing how you might come alive in certain environments at certain times around certain people. There's a whole lot of variables to consider.
For sure, for sure.
So what was the genesis of you getting into the sort of more design area of things, and picking up your art?
Again, I think the longest internship in my life, unknowingly. So since a kid, fascinated, Disney, anything around manga and all that, all these people should be paid monthly dividends for all the inspiration and all the self-learning, literally infused time that I spent. It's fascinating because now it would never happen. And also, I think kids now have so many options, so much distraction, and there's the real and digital world, which I didn't have, that I don't know how someone can do anything for many hours these days. Like unless you're really in it and you're really immersed and everything else is put aside. So I'm very, very grateful for that, because I just feel like that gave me such a future, again, dividends for just having all that in place, and all those skills kind of wake me up at 4 a.m. and I can make something happen because my brain is so switched on. But yeah, it was always a bit of a hobby, because quickly it's sad when you think about it, but it is what it is. And I don't know how Poland is different now, or other people can relate to it, but it was thought that, art is not a thing to do as a job. Forget it. There's no options. So it's sad that you kind of go with that sort of understanding. Yet, thankfully, I loved it always as a hobby. So I always continued. I always tried new things. I always did free projects, kids' books, whatever was coming my way, logos, God knows what, right? Forget like the 300 DPIs and all that. That wasn't existent. I was just doing things for people, without any knowledge, but with a lot of passion and with a lot of like conviction. So I love that about myself, that I was very kind of, always immersed in it. My first business was at 17. My mom was sewing handmade pillows. I was painting for people, bespoke drawings. I ended up like going forward at some point, even in London, in royal family's charity book of illustrations next to like Wallace and Gromit. I found myself at some point at Christie's in a gown next to all the artists with my little illustrations in the book, like, helping animals to survive in Africa and things like that. I know I'm skipping through a lot of things, but I guess what I'm trying to say, I knew that visual work was always there. I always loved it. I always found myself in some sort of projects, literally because I was picking them up. I was asking people, I was noticing things. I don't know, I would go to a talk and I'll be like, oh, you mentioned something there. Can I help? Like I was just always very open, and money wasn't like a driver at that point because the brain says you can't have a job from that. So therefore, just do things because you love them. And again, I appreciate that part of myself that was just so drawn to it, so expressive, and believing that it can be something. But I would never think where, let's say, the art will take me to a professional space. And things kind of quickly changed when 2011 or something like that, Twitter was just the only kind of, I would say, app out there in London. The tech scene was starting, the Silicon Roundabout was getting busy, Google opened up, all that stuff. You were kind of hanging out shoulder to shoulder with today's future massive CEOs, that sort of thing. So I found myself in that sort of space after studying in London. I guess that's why I stayed, because I was just too curious. And it was a moment of luck, the right time, the right place, me being 20 something, let's be honest, a lot of energy, a lot of passion. And one of the tweets that I sent to a mutual friend who was a business owner, consultant, charity owner, super interesting guy, what it's looked like. I tweeted and I was like, I would love to meet for a coffee. At that point, I was working in a startup that wasn't paying anything. It was just a joke a bit, which I bet a lot of us experienced. In the past, I was an art teacher, so that was lovely. But I came out of that because it was just too much paperwork, not enough creativity, not enough time with kids. So I kind of tried that because I could. And when I tweeted him, he was like, okay, I'll meet you for a coffee. And I was like, whoa. And I had to like really scramble, like put together a little portfolio that was not existent then. So, we try, we get creative. And I always say it was a bit of a power hour in my life. I truly, honestly can say that. It was a moment in life when you're like, whoa, this person is speaking to my soul. And I think he just noticed talent and passion and, I guess, opportunity before I could. I knew I have a talent, but I had no clue what I'm doing. I was a bit all over the place. And really, the conversation was like, hi, I do all these things. I don't like my job. I like, what do you do? Is there any way you can at least give me an advice? I wasn't trying to get hired or anything. I was just like, what do you do? Sounds interesting. Do you have any thoughts? And again, I think it was the right moment for him, the right time, the right everything. It was just like a magical little thing. And long story short, he kind of like was like, you're stupid. You have a talent. This is like, what are you doing? Leave this job. We're going to hack you. Like, I don't know how yet, but this is my number. I do a lot of stuff with corporates, brands, consult them, coach them, whatever. You could easily come and visualize all the stories that they struggle with the complex ideas and processes and everything. I don't know. You set up a website, get a card, call me when you're ready. Kind of a sentiment like that, right? Of course, I'm narrowing down for the purpose of the conversation. But also me being quite pragmatic and kind of like, well, if I want to be in London, I had no savings, little room in London, lots of passion, lots of energy, lots of some sort of internal belly fire thing that you understand, Ben, and a lot of creatives, that we have all that inside. But I was like, well, if I'm honest with you, Darren, I can't really just leave a job. It's not a movie. Well, I can't just like, just hope for, suddenly to take off and stuff like that. So we had a chat and he literally decided, without any form, any agreement signed or anything like that, to support me for the next 6 months. We agreed on a number that he said, okay, this is my PA's number. You're going to tell us every month how much you earned. It's a trust thing. And whatever you didn't earn from, let's say, a K, we'll pay the difference, right? So you come to Tracy and you say, hi, Tracy, I earned 200 this month. We'll pay 800. Hi, Tracy, I earned 100 this month. We'll pay 900 without questions asked. All you have to do is go out there, talk to people, ask them how you can help them, share your story, see what happens. And he was massively mentoring me weekly, just helping me out, challenging me. I learned so much as a new business owner, as a person, as a everything. So that is kind of like the start of Natalka design and what I do for almost 14 years now, which is nuts. But that's where that kind of focus into how I can use my art in a context with value to people, and how this art thing and this speed of thinking and knowing and observing can be utilized in a meaningful way for other people. So that blew my mind, because I didn't know that world even existed. I didn't even know this whole visual storytelling thing, it's even a thing. So yeah, I always say, if anyone knows Netflix, people call me, because I will be good serious.
Well, there's a few big things there that I'd love to drill into, but the one that jumps out is I'm seeing already now here, just in a remote conversation, there's a real resonance and a vibrancy to you. There's a real glowing energy, and it's tangible. But in person, you read that a lot more, and this was a big thing for me in my formative career steps, was getting out there, going into London with a portfolio, staying in cheap hostels, making it happen, however required. Because same thing, I had no money either, but by doing that, those early coffees, that half an hour just with a person in a room was huge, because I must have been giving off the same passion, the same will to make it happen, even though I didn't really know how. But I needed those people with more experience to do exactly what you just described, this guy Darren there. I think that's amazing. It's something that I advocate to a lot of new creatives, because it's very easy now with all the tools that we have to just stay on our computers and to do everything through tools. But there's a lot of noise there. There's so much that you lose by not being in the same room with people. That's incredible trust, to make that kind of offer and to extend that to you is brilliant. But my guess is that he picked up on the same resonance that I'm feeling today. So I guess my question is that in your nature? Did you always have this kind of zest about you for as long as you can remember? Do you think the people that know you well would say that is a thing?
Oh, it's always like hard to like, well, yes, Ben, that's what I think, right? It's like I am the worst to like tell anything nice about myself, although I'm getting there slowly in my 30s, trying to be nicer about myself and see that value. But I don't know. I've just always been, head in the sky, looking through that little window in Poland, looking at the moon, and just kind of, I don't know, just the world that I inhabited and grew up in always felt a bit small, always felt a bit like there's more out there, and not meaning at all more money, more something. That was never, that's the, oh, I want a big house. You don't even go like that as a kid. It's more, wow, can I do these things? Could I draw? Could I create this? Could I whatever? And even having this first business at 17, I think like I forget how much it taught me. That was an interesting experience of like, you create something that's wonderful and people want it and love it, and they're happy to, support you, have it, respond to it, love it, feedback you that it made someone super happy. I don't know, it's just even those little things, let's say, kind of where like, whoa, like I can actually make something that like other people like. But beyond that, I don't know, I'm a huge empath. I love observing people. I could sit for hours and just like stare at the world and, doodle in the background and like notice a little squirrel or like a little bird or like, oh, someone's saying that, someone's standing like that. And I think beyond, let's say, the professional, the skill and all those layers, um, I just, my like mission and goal in life is to make people feel seen and understood. And I kind of brought that back into my literally into my mission as a business, because I learned that it's all intertwined. Whatever I do is, I love making people feel seen because I know how it feels not to. And I don't want to get too deep, but I feel at the end of the day, we all need connection, creativity, and feeling seen and understood, because that's when our meaning is somewhere set on this little rock that we're like going like God knows how fast through this dark universe. So I don't know if I'm going to say existential, but I feel this endless ooze and this passion for that. And going into my like 30s and all that, I just feel like my work more and more is becoming more intentional, more contextual. The work that I do on the brain and how we operate and how we behave and what makes us tick and what influences us and why do we say yes to certain things, why do we not. All of that stuff is kind of becoming one little mishmash of understanding humans and their stories, and understanding that we're all just these creatures that tell stories. And the more engaging we are in the way we tell the stories, the more people respond. And there's lots of little tips and tricks and techniques that I've learned on my way and observing other smarter people than me and being here longer than I am. I just kind of learning this sort of whole world of how we operate, and it just fascinates me.
Very interesting. And there's a common thread that I've noticed among a lot of the kind of the people that I know who have taken a similar path to yours, where they've maybe not gone the straightforward route of I draw, therefore I go to study school art and then go to college and then I get a career as an artist. The people who take a different path, and it's interesting because, you know, one part of me goes, oh, you know, I dislike the culture of not valuing art as a potential career. However, when I see that people are nudged down a different path, they come with a different way of seeing the world. So a close friend of mine, he was dissuaded from studying music at school because the GCSE music teacher didn't believe that Gary Newman was real music. I mean, what a crazy reason to dissuade a child from studying music. Is ridiculous. So he took a different path and he studied playwright, poetry and theatre and did quite well in that before coming full circle and coming back to his love of music. And he then self-taught music production. He's a really successful electronic musician and producer now. He's played Glastonbury and travels all over the world. But he pulls in all of those learnings from all those different fields, and all of the time he acts like a different beast. You know, he's very responsive. And I wonder if, even though in an ideal world you would not have come from a culture that maybe didn't view art as a potential career, but I see, you know, your learning of languages and that kind of approach, that must have helped in this ability to want to learn about the brain and to help people to tell stories. Do you think that's the case?
I mean, Ben, I'm just like, I'm a sponge. If I could, I would all day just plug myself to Kindle, talk to scientists, sit in classes, speak to smart people, go for a coffee with Stephen Fry. Like, I adore knowledge. So,
Me
you know,
too.
for me, like, even your podcast and everything, I live for that stuff. So, you know, and I feel there's so many ways to learn and absorb from people, from listening to things, from watching things, from observing, from nothing, right? So that's also another way of learning. Like, can you just be still, which is very hard for, I think, any creative, but can we just be still? And even when you're still, what comes up, right? Yeah. And I just think, like, I'm so appreciative of the language part, because first of all, I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be speaking to you right now. Let's just make it very practical here. I'm so grateful that even my mom could see, you know, that like, oh, she likes it, let's, you know, put her into classes. Like, she could totally not respond to that. So, you know, and the art was just because there was nothing around me. I couldn't just go to like San Francisco from Poland and like maybe try and like study there or something. I couldn't. So therefore, let me try and develop myself. Psychology was always a huge passion for me. I tried to get into studies millions of times, and I did at some point, and it was just like a fascinating, since beginning, part of my learning. And even when I was studying languages, there was a huge part, or like psychological part, in learning languages, because there was a lot of knowledge about brain, how it's structured, how kids are learning since 0 to 5, how that moment is important to us. We're literally sponges in so many ways, and certain things just stay forever in parts of the brain. And I just was like, wow, you know, that whole world fascinated me. The amount of books I read about brains, and the projects that I do now behind the scenes that are connected with brain and psychology. I just said on a podcast yesterday that I would love like Imperial or King's College to like plug me in, you know, let's do a test and like plug my brain in as I kind of, let's say, life sketch or something, one of those skills that I have, that speed of thinking and processing and creating, and just see what's happening in the brain. Because I'm actually curious if something is kind of quite on a high level intensity there to discover, how can we bring that to everyone else? And maybe there's ways that we call it all tap into certain focus areas or certain skilled areas that we don't even know we have, because we just don't allow for that time or for that moment to explore. that's why I'm also such a propeller of being, of play, of creativity in business, of allowing that time, that space for yourself, because it just opens up new doors. How many DMs or comments or feedback I've had in my professional time from teams, from leaders, from managers, from whichever level, saying, Natalia, after that session, I started doing this. Natalia, it made me think of this. Natalia, I actually called that person. That's what I live for. I just live for, like, I want to be that sort of little, like a firecracker, and just like start these new threads, because I truly believe everything is a thread and we're all connected in some way. Probably we have somewhere mutual friends we don't even know about. It's all crazy to me, but we only can access that when we allow for that. And let's be honest, we live in a world that wants us to be busy, wants us to be very distracted, very worried. That's why all the media and all the social, it's not really helping us. The amount of knowledge that we're exposed to and have to process daily. Just had a conversation about it today with a dad of two 18-year-olds. And we're talking about them and how they're experiencing the world. It's just, there's no even, it's a fact that the amount of information they have to process or are exposed to, even if they don't want to, because it's just one click away, we can't compare with what we've experienced. We just can't compare. So I'm just fascinated about how we work, how they work, and the differences and what that means when they're older, all that stuff. I'm just geeking out right now, but could study this all day long. Like how is the brain kind of experiencing all of it, and when is too much, and what is happening to us as we progress into this future.
So let's talk about. I mean, I completely agree. I could talk all day about the information thing, and I've got two 4-year-olds who are about to start school in September. And I worried would be the wrong word, but I have a big responsibility to police the amount of information they're exposed to until they're old enough to make decisions for themselves. So I make sure we always have good quiet time. We read countless books. I'm making sure they have the magic, they have the time to understand, to get to know themselves, because it's vital. I don't want them to be scatterbrained and stretched and stressed.
Yeah.
And in terms of, before I go on, I don't know if you're aware of the Blind Boy podcast.
Yes. I listened to a few in the past year.
There's a tremendous episode called an essay about the inside of a tennis ball, and he very much digs down deep into the restlessness and the kind of what you alluded to a little bit there about the needing to move. And he's an extreme case of it. He says that when he's thinking of ideas and he's planning, he'll walk 20,000 steps. He has to be on the move, listening to music. It's how he operates, and therefore school was a bit of a nightmare for him because has to sit down for all that time. He's recently diagnosed as autistic. I just find it really, really interesting about the different requirements for learning for different people. But let's talk about the kind of the work you do then in terms of going into businesses and the neuroscience-led work. Visual play in business is a really interesting concept. First of all, what is the appetite like, and how much kind of selling in do you have to do to get a bite on these ideas? Because I completely see the value of this, and I'm building my own coaching model just now. But it does seem to me like there's a growing awareness of the value of this. Is that something you've encountered? Are people quite hungry for it?
Yeah, I will keep it honest, Ben, because I think your audience deserves it, and you do. I think it's a mixed bag still. I think there's tons of people who are like, you don't even have to say anything. They come to you and they're like, we need this regularly, please. Right? Or we need this for the launch of X or Y, because it's just, there's nothing going on. There's a dinner. I don't want people to come away and just have a fancy t-shirt dinner and like, that wasn't an experience. So there's the world of knowing and wanting it. And there's a huge world, and that's why I kind of speak about it as well, where in general, and I don't know if you can relate, Ben, but I think we live in a world where drawing as an activity, especially at work environment, can be seen as childish, not important, nice to have, bit of a gimmick. And I sometimes wonder, where is the origin of that? Because no one thinks of speaking, writing as not important. How is writing something more important than drawing something? And what fascinates me is that, let's be honest, most of us, I'll always keep it that I don't know, but most of us, I would assume, have been drawing here and there or more as kids and not even thinking about it. Now, I'll keep it in levels because not everyone was super passionate, totally fair. But most of us even were made to draw at school. And that was a thing, that was a class, that was something to learn. But then I guess something happens where society tells us that unless you're super interested in it, or when you grow up and you have kids, or you're exposed to, let's say, young adults or kids, it's not really a thing that is needed anymore from you or required. And I wonder, and looking at data, looking at surveys, this is not my saying, my doing, drawing has been the first language ever spoken. We're looking at caves. So I'm going way back when. There was no Turkish, German, Polish, American. It was drawings. That's how we express stories, where we're from, what is the construct of our family, what are the symbols maybe of our tribe, whatever that is, right? We're going there. And then languages and speaking came in a natural way and developed. So if we want to go back, there's all the proof that is something that really helped people to connect, to understand each other, to live and create. And then I just always look at this and I'm like, what is so uncomfortable about using drawing at work? And actually, like, instead of just wondering about it, I did some anonymous interviews in my time and all that. And the people that still are not sure, there's a lot of fear. And the fear comes from connecting with the results, with the KPIs, with the goals, of course, because, you know, you've got a business, you've got to make a move, you've got to make it earn money. I totally get it. That's the idea of a business, right? We're not talking hobby. A business is there to start and grow and maybe be sold or acquired or whatever, right? I get that. But for some reason in our culture, in our society, drawing has been thought of as not needed. Again, you know, like, what are we doing here? So my whole work with whether we use it in play or whether we use it in serious strategic sessions that take you from A to B, basically in a much faster, much more engaged, and much more cooperative and problem-solving inducing way, because people come out literally upskilled after experiences like that, which is my goal. I just wonder, like, you know, that's the fight that I have. Like, so I have these two worlds of people super trusting in it and people being like, I'm not sure. And they need to go through it to then be like, I'm sold. So I think there's a lot of work still to be done. I don't think we're anywhere at a place where everyone's calling left and right, especially when it comes to play part of using visual storytelling. And that's the doodly-doo experience world that I created, which is basically getting together and expressing your ideas, connecting, strategizing, thinking through the art of drawing, which means you can be bad at it. It doesn't matter if you're an artist, just express yourself. And my goal is for people to upskill themselves, to feel more confident, connected with that specific skill. Like, whoa, I can actually create stickmen, and like, I can actually do that after 30 years. So that's the work. That's part of the work that I'm here for, because I see the results. And there's data. I love my data because I don't have to sell anything. It's just the data is like updated every year, wide data. And we see what we see. So life's work, that part for sure, you know, to make people go through it, to understand it, to believe it, to see that it has massive results.
Yeah, and way deeper than simply the act or the manifestation of drawing, you know, what we create. You're using a different type of intelligence when you do that, and you're engaging different parts of the brain. So I think it's, you know, it's how do you get that idea across that this is helping you on a neuroscience level, you know, and a confidence, like you say, a confidence level. You're breaking through small barriers that have maybe been in place since adolescence, let's say, because I think this is something that I've factored into a talk that I'm designing, the creative condition talk at the moment, and I call it the maturity trap. And so many of us fall into it, even if just temporarily, in our teenage years, because we have heightened self-awareness and suddenly, you know, new emotions. I recently watched Inside Out 2, the Pixar film, with my kids, and I loved it because right at the start of the film, there's a big puberty alarm goes off, and you know, these new emotions arrive, anxiety and envy, and it's very, as Pixar does very well. It's very accurate, it's very true, it's very funny. But I think that so many of us get caught up in those kind of, we want to be a part of the tribe, we want to be accepted, we want to fit in, all those things we go through in teenage years. I think that sadly, so many of us don't ever leave those behind. And I think that something that is so overtly done in childhood, which is drawing, is perhaps left there because it's seen as the domain of children. But as you said, it's not. It goes back to, it predates language. It's crazy that it's not seen as the valuable necessity that it is. So that's really fascinating to me. Yeah, I don't know. That maturity trap is real, isn't it? Is that a big part of your work, unpicking that with people?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that kind of almost smoothly leads into the experiential AI tool that me and Henry, my business partner, have been working on. It's purely about taking your shitty drawings, and I'll say that because most of us have them, and that's okay. That's the trap, that we think they're awful, therefore, we don't want to show them, we don't want to do them, we want perfection. And again, I truly don't believe there's anything perfect in the world. It's all a bit of a chaotic mess. In places looks like it's perfect, but it's all a lie, and we all know that. So the tool that we're building is literally taking your really bad drawings, but the point is, you've got an idea, please draw it. Use a different type of language for once, because different parts of the brain connect with that. Prefrontal cortex is active then. When we sketch, the entire brain is active, and literally the dopamine comes out, and it's just like a very, very different experience for the brain than when you speak or when you write or when you create tables or whatever. So it's just on a brain level, it's a different experience, which means new connections are made, which means you're gaining new skill, you're more open to problem solving, you're more observant, your critical thinking levels go up, and all that beautiful stuff, if I can keep it in a simple language. So again, data, just do it. But if we get people to say it's okay to be bad, just express the idea, then they go, okay, someone okayed that I can be shit, if I may say that, feel free to bleep it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
They draw it. Let's say we've done it at MadFest with Henry. We launched it there this year, what am I saying? This year. And people were asked to draw the creative job of the future, like we're looking at 2040 or something like that, or the idea. And so many people got into it, and they like created new businesses and ideas and things. And then the tool, basically, you scan the drawing, the tool spits out through a lot of work that we do with LLMs, and really kind of focused on how people draw, and making the tools recognize that if someone draw a rocket and it looks a bit shit, because the tool could think it's a fish, for example, because it's that bad, the tool still knows, let's call it knows, that it's a rocket, that's what they meant, right? So we're looking really into even like how the lines are drawn and what that means in the styles of drawing, and the literally down to how thick you created the line. That means that it's important to the brain and things like that. So fascinating geeky stuff in the background that I love doing all day long. And basically that bad drawing becomes a idea sharing ready, kind of, you could put it easily into a deck, present it to your company, to your boss. This is the idea that I had. What do you guys think? The amount of energy we're gaining from this tool, we call it Visualize Futures. And there's a free Substack if you want to read some bits and pieces about people first AI strategies. And it's just good stuff for the companies to read through. But the amount of positive feedback and kind of like, can I have this tomorrow at my work? Because it would change people's like literally lives, like how they express ideas. It's been so amazing. So it just, makes us want to develop it even more. But we're at baby steps, as with everything, and we're just, progressing it as we go. Next year will be more fun even. But yeah, this is like part of my work. I want everyone to understand they're inherently creative. The whole drawing thing, it's a bit of a scam. Like, just draw, just express yourself in a different way. But how can you make this not led by fear? How can you just focus on, this is my idea, and I can express it as I can verbally, with words, with writing. I can also express it with visuals, and no one's having any feelings about it. It's just one of the languages. I'm not saying scrap it all and just use that. I'm just saying add it to your toolbox. So therefore your brain can choose, almost like, ooh, for this pitch next time with my team, I'm going to do like a cool doodle presentation. Then maybe I'll drive it through AI or something to help me express what I'm actually thinking, and then like, build something around it, and whatever. Just have that sort of like almost part of your workflow, your creative flow. Just allow for it, I guess. So yeah, again, I'm all here to speak all day about the fact that we're all creative. We all can do it. It doesn't matter how well we draw. It's not about being Disney artist. Yes, some people basically have talent or they have amazing skills, because yes, there is a difference between me and you if I spend 100,000 hours on this and you haven't. So you can build it up, of course, if you want to draw that person better, if you spend thousands of more hours. But also there's, we can't compare like talent and inherent creativity. That's completely two different things.
Yeah.
To me, creativity is not just taking beautiful photos, dancing, painting, singing well, and all that. We can't all be Adele. She was born with this amazing voice. Yes, she took endless probably classes to develop it and better it and have a stage presence and all these things that come with being an artist. But I don't have that voice. So, but it doesn't make that, oh, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I'm not creative. I'll go to finance. Go to finance, but like you're still, doesn't matter. You're in finance, you're a priest, you're selling bread, you're not hired, actually you're a stay-home parent. Doesn't matter, we're all creative. It's just no one talks about it. What is actually creativity? It's not the whole drawing and painting that we all think. And then I have so many friends, and I bet you do as well, who are like, oh, Natalia, you're so creative. Oh, I wish I was. Like, I hate, but you are. And there's ways that I talk them through how they're creative, right? So it's not the painting, it's how you think, it's how you observe, it's how you make decisions, how you process information, all of that stuff. That's creativity.
Yeah, it's become the driving force of my work, and it is the opening chapter in my latest book. Is I call it the common misconception, and I start off immediately by separating artistic ability and creativity for exactly the reasons you just wonderfully explained. Because we wouldn't be on this planet if we weren't creative. That's the bottom line. Artistic talent, it can be developed. Like you said, some people are born with a fantastic starting hand. They're very well geared to that. That's the way they've been born. That's nature. But then nurture, you can really develop, and anyone can build on that if they want to. But to speak of quality, like you said, is why is sketching an idea any different to doing a quick sum on the corner of a piece of paper or writing a quick idea down a line of copy? It's not any different. So it is functional. It's getting to it's expressing something that's very different. I guess there's an aspect of the fact that in our culture, art is so subjective and we're so judgmental about what we like, what we don't like, that it cultivates the fear that when people then step into that realm of drawing, they see it as something that is that and not just the idea. So that's where your work is so valuable by the sound of it, which I love. And in terms of, you mentioned new pathways, I find that really interesting. And I had a conversation recently with a drama and English teacher, and she was really lamenting the fact that she was only able to teach drama once for 1 hour every 2 weeks. And a lot of her kids, she felt really needed more to get to the core of where they were at. And there's so many studies when you look into it that show that when a person is engaged with an art form, or it can be sport, but predominantly things like dance and drama, even just for a short period of time each week in their education, then it really boosts their engagement with literacy, with language, with science, with all the other STEM subjects that we place such importance on in our culture. So it seems like that's the case, that you're learning with your work, that if you go into businesses and you get people drawing and like you say, you give them this new thing in their toolkit, my guess is that that's going to help them to engage in other areas of their work and boost their overall performance. Do you think that's something that's going on?
I mean, it's just anything we can do in real time without any distraction, where you can fully immerse yourself, whether that's a walk without your phone, whether that's a dance class, whether that's cooking, and all you're focusing is that beautiful book and messing about and making pasta, and maybe it didn't work, but who cares? You're going from A to B, and maybe you go back to D and then Z, and then you throw it out in the bin. Doesn't matter. If you're at any point, if you're immersed in something fully in real time, brain loves it. Brain loves it because it can fully engage. It creates all the good hormones that we all need. And then when you need to sit down to your next presentation, your next deck, you need to describe the strategy of the business. You need to do all these heavy lifting. You need to, I don't know, talk to your child about something difficult. Doesn't have to be all connected with work as well. Your brain has had that experience, all that dopamine kicked in. It's literally almost like a cleansing for the brain. And then it can go into these deeper focused moments, because one thing, I don't know if you noticed, but everyone's so defocused. Everyone's so like, what am I doing? Let's be honest, it's mainly tech. It's mainly what's happening with us, as in like the phone is literally an extension of our arm. How many of us go from A to B, a walk or somewhere, and we're like, oh, I got there. How I got there. Like, we don't even pay attention. We can say, oh, wow, how easy it became, but also how scary that you have no idea what happened on the way, right? So the brain at this point sees literally this little device as like an extension of us. And like, don't get me wrong, there's so much good in it. There's so much wonderful things that can happen. If I didn't tweet the person, whatever, like we can go on. All of our lives are connected with it. But there's just so much kind of reliance on it that we just don't pay any attention. And then any sort of tasks that require some focus are really, really difficult. And it only, as we can see from recent data, it only goes worse and worse and worse. So any time that you can engage the brain, even for 10 minutes or so, with something super immersive, even if it's a conversation with someone, don't pick up the phone in the middle of it or something. If it's observing something, if it's watching something. I just recently had a conversation with someone who's a bit younger than me, late 20s, and he's like, I can't watch a movie. I'm like, why? I can't either these days. But he's like, I just can't spend all this time. I don't know, like it's too long. It's too much. I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. No one would ever say that before. And I went to like looking into it, and it's this whole, the brain, it has so many inputs. These days we have so many things to think about. And again, technology is like, please look at me, new stuff. Brain likes novelty. Unfortunately, that's what it is. That's why many people cheat as well, because novelty. I'm sorry, but like I'm going to different places. Brain loves it, and media and brands know about it, and color psychology and all that stuff. That's why like food is red and yellow, and financial companies are blue and gray because it's trust and all that. So I guess it will help all of us if we can pay a bit more attention sometimes to actually what we're doing. So I'm not even telling you like go and have a dance class right now. If you have no time, no space for it, forget it. But can you notice, let's say even throughout the day, how many times you want to pick up a phone, or even if you're not picking up that phone, how many times you're thinking about it? Because there's even places and spaces where we go to a lovely dinner, or we go to someone's birthday or something. And in that birthday, we're like, oh, I wonder if that person replied. Should I check Instagram? Is there whatever? It's wild. So I think the whole like awareness of how we're just pay more attention, what your brain is thinking throughout the day, what it's doing. Next time you go to a tube station or something, can you actually walk to it and notice how you feel? What thoughts come to you without the phone in your hand? Because you actually know how to get there. You don't need the phone, things like that. So don't know where I went with the rabbit hole, but I think what I'm saying is here is observe your brain. It needs attention. It needs time off of all of this, and give it fully immersive moments if you can. And it doesn't have to be anything artistic, simple things, even playing with your child. Can you spend 10, 15 minutes just playing with your child? And even if it's difficult, challenge yourself, because that's the almost rewiring that we want to do as we're going more and more into tech and into AI and into the future of being immersed by this whole thing. Because one day, just like phone, we're not going to even pay attention to AI. It's going to be part of us, just like the phone. And your kids will be laughing at the phone, by the way, right? Obviously. So attention. The brain is getting it less and less, and it's kind of just becoming this like, where am I? What am I doing? Wow, like what? I need to send some emails. I can't think even. That's a lot of that people are experiencing. It's very sad because it's not our fault. It's what's happening around with the tech.
There's a book, and Tom Hodgkinson is an editor of the Idler magazine, And it was the most ironic thing I could have done as a new twin parent was subscribe to the idler because I wasn't idling at all. But the point was, I was finding it a bit hard at the start of parenting. Not the parenting, but in terms of I was so tired that I was letting things get on top of me, like concerns about the environment and things like that were weighing on me more than they had done previously because my defenses were down. So what I did was subscribe to the idler, and as part of doing that, you get a copy of Tom's book called An Idler's Manual, and it's brilliant because it's exactly what you just described. It gives you kind of 50 exercises that you can do anytime, any place, and things like staring at a wall, sitting on a bench. And these are things to make sure that you do to, again, be fully immersed in your environment and to actually to step out of the busyness, the craziness, and it was profoundly helpful for me. I literally stared at the park wall for 5 minutes, like where I was. People probably thought I was nuts, but actually, when you start really seeing that, there's a lot going on the park wall, and on that level, you just notice things, and what then you do it because we're getting disconnected from like the default mode network and from deep thinking, which is where when the unconscious is allowed to kick in, that's where we get our truly great ideas and we make the connections from all of the information that we're putting into our heads. So yeah, no, I do think it's really sad when people are so discombobulated and just can't engage or even watch a film, because that's a wonderful, immersive experience. So yes, I think it's really vital actually, and we're at a real crossroads there. And I think it's really important for all of our futures, because the next generation of people are our next doctors and our next whatever artists.
You want them to be focused on that surgery, hey, for 4 hours.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Not putting it on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think about the book Think Fast and Slow, right? That's a really good one if someone wants to dig deeper into it. And my good friend, actually, Marcus John Brown, I will send you a link if people want to see. We did a creative evening earlier this year, lovely kind of get together. Creatives were there, strategists, artists, typewriting artists, futurists, whatever. I just mixed the whole room. I would love to have you for the next one. And he was speaking about procrastination. So all my speakers had 5 minutes to express themselves, and there was a word that they just explore the word, whatever it means to you. So his word was procrastination. And he was one of the favorite talks, everyone said, because he was actually talking about procrastination is a great thing. Again, in a society, we're all made to like next, more, buy 99p, this, go, adventure, ooh, colors. That's the dopamine effect that, again, novelty. Brain likes it. So the moment you understand that the brain likes it, but it doesn't mean that it's good for you, it just distracts you from whatever you're supposed to do, I guess, in that moment. He was talking about procrastination is a good thing. And just in short, one of his comments, the next time your husband is staring out of the window and pondering and wondering whilst you want him to do, something in the house, just let him stare, because he might just actually be coming up with the best ideas, whatever, and then come back to you in a much more, again, refreshed way. And how many people afterwards were saying, oh my God, my husband does it or my wife does it. Like, I will just let them be. It was the most kind of wonderful, humorous, profound moment. But if you want, then I'll send a link to that. It's 5 minutes and it's quite humorous, but quite profound little talk. Yeah.
Please do. I'd really love to see that. And I would love to be involved too. Yeah, because the older I get, the more I get a huge buzz from all this learning. And I said to somebody the other week, like my rock stars used to be musicians and footballers and wrestlers and the things I was into. It's not anymore. It's, I had a Yasmin Ali on the show the other week, who's a chemical engineer working in sustainable energy. These guys are my rock stars now. It's like...
Same. I mean, like my goal in life is to meet Stephen Fry, Alain de Botton, all these people. So like all, I just love people who observe and can slow down for a second and just kind of bring us back a bit, because we're so good when we thrive on that creativity, allow ourselves moments. And don't get me wrong, how many friends I have and, families like yourself. We have kids, we have busy lives, we have millions of things to think about. The modern world is designed to constantly not let us think, not let us procrastinate, not let us indulge. Sitting and doing nothing is like, we all get like, well, I can't, like I should, what is the next thing that I'm doing, right? Like, and I understand that people might think a bit maybe like, oh, maybe, well, if you have time, that's great. I don't. But I would then challenge in the moments that you have in the day, and we all have 5 minutes that we definitely spent on social media left and right here because we wouldn't be then commenting on social media that we have no time. So I always kind of try to challenge that. If you really didn't have time, you wouldn't comment on it. So can you find 5 minutes here and there where you can, I'm not saying stare. If that's not your thing, don't do it. But that fully immersive moments, what are they for you? Even if it's a walk to work for a moment without a phone, and maybe just today you decided you're going to go that way, although it doesn't look as attractive. But maybe, I don't know, there's something on that road that will caught your attention or not, but it's just a different experience for the brain. Let it experience few new things. As we get older, we do it less and the brain shrinks a bit. That sort of like, awareness of new is very, very important. Not necessarily scrolling through TikTok, but experiencing different, allowing for different moments in a day. Even if it's, you always took an Americano, take a old flat white. And then maybe, who knows, maybe you just have like this milk or something and like a different conversation with someone. I don't know. I'm not trying to predict these things, but just try tiny, tiny new routines, new ways of looking at things, new roads, new whatever. If you've always went to Greece every year, go to bloody Croatia. Like just those things. Like we like our comforts. That's where the brain wants to be. It likes comforts and likes novelty, but not the novelty that TikTok is giving us, right? The novelty of experiencing people, things, surroundings, all that. If you always sat by this tree during your lunch break, sit there, sit at a different tree for once, and I challenge myself as well. Don't get me wrong. I love my little comforts. I love my morning coffee or whatever. But like, I'm just sometimes trying to like, I've always done this strength class. I'm going to try in this one, do this one. Oh, that made me feel weird and different and like whatever, so we have to actively challenge ourselves.
Yes, we do. And that's when we find the joy, the joy of learning, the joy of the new and sense of adventure. There's something I touched upon in my own work called nomadicity, and it's looking at the way that we evolved. We used to travel in small groups. We didn't have a fixed abode until we settled in the dawn of agriculture. And therefore, we still need to pay attention to that need to be on the move. So for some people, it might be going to a football away game. They get a day out to travel. They speak to new people. They see a new place. Brilliant. They're doing it. But for people, as you say, might be busy or might have a family and might have more constraints. That can be just exploring the postcode next door that you never went to, because it just does something. It opens up a bit more of the world and it gets you thinking on a different level. But like you say, it's very important to be immersed at all times in these activities. And social media just does a wonderful job of hijacking these evolutionary needs and giving us a very vacuous, empty nothing in return.
Yeah.
So beware.
There's a comedian that I've seen recently. Well, there you go. Instagram. Sometimes, my Instagram is just dogs and travel and coffee, right? But I've seen this comedian and I'm happy to send you the link as well. So it's not just, people can actually experience what I'm saying. But he, humor, love humor, because through humor, we say so many truths. So I love comedians because they express really difficult, challenging concepts that no one wants to talk about or people feel uncomfortable, but humor allows for that. So I think that's a brilliant way of expressing ourselves. And that's why people are drawn to comedy. But he was talking basically about mindfulness. So that's sort of that focus, right? And he's like, well, back in the days, we didn't have phones, for example. And he's like, well, you had to be mindful. It wasn't a thing we're trying to gain. If you were sitting on that bus going from A to B, you were sitting on the bus and staring through the window, talking to someone, sleeping, I don't care, but there was nothing to do. If you were, I don't know, walking your dog, you were just walking your dog without a phone. And then he went there and he was like, I don't remember last time I had shit without a phone, like just having a shit. I'm sorry, I'm going to go there, but that's what he said. And I was like, oh my God, right? And he's like, we used to just go, do the thing and get out. Now it takes everyone half an hour because everyone's liking things on Instagram whilst they're in the loo. Let's be honest. So it's not even, you're never doing anything consciously. Even eating, how much information is out there that the brain and the body loves when we're actually actively nurturing ourselves and feeling and thinking how when we eat. That makes us eat less, more conscious, our digestion system works better, all that stuff, right? I'm not an expert here, but in general, it's facts. And how many of us often, or if not all the time, will put a YouTube video? Nothing wrong with that, because on the other side of this, you're relaxing. So that's, let's not kill all of those dopamine effects. But there's something about you eating something on your plate. You have no idea how it tasted, what you ate, how much time it took. And you probably often will be like, oh, I want more, because on YouTube, why is YouTube as well red? It's red mostly because red is a color of wanting more, of satiating yourself, of being hungry for things. That's why food industry is so red. So it will draw you more into like wanting more, and there's an alert. So when you don't think about it, you're like, oh, I'm still hungry. And you're not. You're just, you don't know because you're not paying any attention. So little things like that, right? I'm not saying sit there in silence and like eat slowly. No, but maybe sit and listen to some music.
Yeah, it's awareness, isn't it? Like you said, it's all about nuance. None of this is about just stop that and do this. It's all about just being aware, being consciously aware of what these things are doing and why they're engineered to do so. And it's not for our benefit, it's for our attention. That's why it's called the attention economy. It's that's what they're training in. But yeah, no, you're right. It's true though. Yeah, they're sitting on the toilet, they're eating all these things that were maybe the time where we could let things process once upon a time have kind of been hijacked. So yeah, it's good to be mindful of that. And I'm going to be an absolute Victorian dad when it comes to that. So yeah,
it's like even tiny thing I've started doing for ages now. I sometimes do a little 5K around the park. And when I was starting, because everyone does it, big headphones, looking amazing, right? Looking super cool. Not saying that's, again, as you said, nuance always. If that is something that helps you to run, you love it, do it. Please do. Like, don't even listen to me. But I started with just like listening to music constantly, or like podcasts or something. And it was very always early in the morning. I'm like, how would it be to like just do the 5K and not have anything on me? I don't even want like a watch. I don't care what's my measurements, whatever. I just want to like run and stare at stuff. And every time I noticed more relaxing feeling after that run, and just more open brain to kind of then, and more focus throughout the day. Because if you're giving the brain from super morning something to focus on, process, like everything's a processing, right? Like the podcast, like the music that you're listening, everything, the brain is like, oh, input. What if you just do something without it for a moment, especially in the morning, because it just wakes up and wants that moment. And I don't know, I'm like, oh, this tree is really cool. Like, maybe I don't need this information, but maybe I do. Who knows, right? So again, it's just like, at least give it both and see if you notice any difference.
Yeah, it's really true. And one useful tool for me is, I have a regular dialogue with my deathbed self, and that's something that was advised to me. And it's kind of, so I'm constantly policing myself with, okay, is this a valid use of my time right now? If scrolling on here or even replying to this message, can that wait until a time when I can do it and save more time? But, little things, I walk the dog every morning and he's not going to be here one day. So, okay, that's maybe a bit morbid, but I want to be here with him in this moment. I want to enjoy this walk. So like you said, smell these trees. And I've been doing that more recently and stopped myself kind of listening to podcasts and replying to messages. And I've been more focused in my day job because I come back into work, I have my drink, I've had that wonderful connection with nature, with my dog and with the kids in the morning. And then I can get on my tech because I need it for my work. And it then becomes an enabling thing. It's something I've consciously chosen to engage with. I'm getting the best out of it. But that's a good way to police yourself, is to keep thinking, look, can I look my deathbed self in the eye and sign this off as a valid use of my time right now? And if the answer is no, I force myself not to do it.
I mean, we're all victims to it. So that's why I'm trying, like, always say it's not our fault. It's literally what a very clever work by other people to get us into that space. Yeah. The thing that if you have control over anything is the agency of how you want to interact with it. And we have to be aware that just like any other addiction, literally just like any other addiction, and we know there's many of those, it's up to you how you start noticing it. And it will be hard, it will be annoying. You will want that phone on the loo. You will want that YouTube video when you want to eat. You will want 2 hours on Instagram in the evening. We all know that. That's our, like, we've done it now for a long time. So it's really up to you if you want to sometimes almost take it as a game. Like, you might lose sometimes, you might win sometimes. I'm trying for like bloody now a few weeks. It's on my calendar every day, and it says put away the phone for night, like, so that when you wake up, it actually wakes you up. You have to get up and stop it. Because my main thing that I'm working through now is the world of snoozing. I'm a master snoozer. And I know from data, from surveys, from everything is really not good for the brain, for health, for everything. It's not really sleeping, it's pretending. But like, I'm like, I feel my brain feels empowered to be like, no, not yet, right? Not yet. And it doesn't serve anyone, not me, not my health, not my rest. But for some reason, I got myself into that sort of habit. So I challenge myself. I know it sounds like nothing for so many people if they don't have that problem. See, that's my problem. But I will challenge myself this week, put the bloody phone on the table so that when it rings, sorry, Natalia, get off your ASS and turn it off and start your day. Because it doesn't, but what's the reward? I'll put it for a bit later because the snoozing gets me up later anyways. So there is a reward because the brain wants a reward. So how can you, it's a game. Just find, your little games and see, like, literally score yourself. Turn it into something enjoyable. Otherwise, you're going to be like, oh, hate it.
Yeah, you should check out Lauren Kelly. She's great. She's a behavior designer, and she's up on all of these things. And she has all the kind of ways to police and design your own behavior to implement these things. Yeah. Well, look, I've covered most things here, and where can people connect with you, Natalia, and where can people learn more about your business? Because it's just utterly fascinating, and I hope that people want a piece of it.
Natalka Design, that's the website. So, we'll have all the contacts. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you want a bit of that, just connect with me on LinkedIn, my name. And if you want to read a bit of Substack and it's fun, brain, neuroscientific storytelling, bits and pieces and insights and sometimes random notes from me, it's called Creative Brain Club. So that's kind of where mostly I'm hanging around. But yeah, I think it's almost at this point impossible not to get in touch with me if you really want to.
Brilliant. Well, I'll be doing that. I'm new to Substack, and but I have signed up for it now, so I will give you a follow on there because there's so much you've said today that has left me wanting more. So I will be reading and responding, and
please. I need definitely more interaction because for now it's kind of like audience and me. People again feel shy to respond sometimes or something. I want all of us to have a chat. I know I don't know. That's the first thing I always say. Like, I'm forever a student, and I want you all, every one of us, to be a bit more curious and just think of yourself as forever a student. Mistakes are okay. There's nothing perfect in this world, and that's cool.
Brilliant. Well, that's a wonderful note to sign off on. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you so much to Natalia Talkowska for taking the time to talk. Do check out Natalka Design. Very interesting stuff. The lass is a powerhouse. Natalkadesign.com. You can check it out. You can read her bio over there. Some really cool images. I love the hat that she rocks. Looks great. Got the brand on point. Great to see. Let me know what you took away. Ben at bentalon.com. Going under the named email now because I've been told that mailers don't like hello addresses. Can still get me on that one. Hello at bentalon.com. It's one and the same. Big thank you to the founding sponsor of the show, illustrationx.com. It's a joy to have had them on this show from day one. Like I said, I'm dropping the highlights and the what we learned, unfortunately, because I just don't have all the time. So it's podcast stuff, it's conversations, it's me occasionally, solo episodes, but it's going to stay weekly. That's the main thing. We've got to keep that momentum going, guys. So do share it. I'm going to ask you a big favour now. I know I've been asking you to rate and review and subscribe, and all that is wonderful. If you have the time to do that, please do go ahead and do it. But most important of all, could you please go and just tell someone about the show? I enjoyed that episode. You should check that out. It's a good podcast. It's going to help you with your creativity. I would really appreciate that. It's how the show grows organically. Please get on board and help me do that. Love you all. Thank you for listening. Also, thanks to the Ukrainian Institute. Check them out at ui.org.ua, and please do go and support their cause by shouting about their creative community there in Ukraine. Commission them if you're in a position to. That would be awesome too. Cheers for listening, guys. Thank you. The book is out now, The Creative Condition, at bentalonwriter.com/shop. Also available as an ebook. The Anatomy of Creativity map is out as a printed A3 edition. It's also available for the price of a pint as a digital PDF download. It gives you some structure for your creativity to take care of it and actively work on it, as does my new coaching model. Get in touch if you're interested in that, ben at bentalon.com. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Have a great week.